All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I see we got 129 people, so that's great. I'm really excited about this. As you know, those of you have been attending, we've months of work has gone into this group of a lot of defining, level setting, coming up with use cases, scenarios, filling out questionnaires, looking at a lot of materials, having a lot of great discussions. Which has resulted in a wealth of knowledge and information. And I appreciate everybody's participation to this point. It's been going, I think, moving ahead very smoothly, especially with as large of a group that we have. I'm happy to announce that we have gained a total of, I think, at least at minimum right now, 54 vendor participants, vendor or integration participants. And that's unbelievable. I would not have foreseen this when we started. So I'm really appreciative of that and what this group is going to be able to do with all the demos that we'll be doing. But some of one of the concerns I had is some have joined later than others. And we do have some mandatory things that we want to go over. And one of those things that we'll go over today is the outline that we are requiring for what to be covered in your presentations. But first, what I'll do is I will show you, for those that do not know, everybody should be getting access to the Huddle site that is participating. And there is under the security working group, and we have our zero trust folder. There are a bunch of materials and information where we started with our charter, the executive orders. There's some reference materials. There are some presentations. Presentations are subgroups of the overall zero trust framework, and we kind of broke out and redefined some of the like automation analytics, the data piece, the governance piece, the identity management piece, the asset and the network piece, and kind of level set on what we meant by those things. So a lot of good materials, terminology that we're using and things like that. What's important for getting ready for the demos today, though, all the other stuff is important, but is also what you need to know for the demos. And what you will see here is probably the most important document, which a lot of these things roll into this one document, which is called ATARC, Zero Trust Vendor Outline version 2 document. It's a Word document, which I'm about to pull up here in a second. And this is that document. So we are, like I said, when we do your demos, we want the audience to be able to have some kind of apples to apples and know exactly what their information they're receiving, that they're receiving, equivalent information from each of the vendors, going over similar use cases, understanding exactly what it is you're presenting, what your functionality is, and we'll kind of go through this in detail. But this is what you will be doing your presentations on. The first part, of course, will be more probably slide oriented for you, and then the last part will actually be the demos, and I'll show you where that comes in. So first of all, the presentation outline. What we want to know is what you are presenting. We want to know basically what is it that you're presenting and what am I deploying? If I have to deploy something or I have to do anything for different use cases, and these use cases we actually use for TIC 3.0 as well. So this is based on the architecture. What is the architecture look like of your solution? So use case 1 would be central headquarters operations. Use case 2 being satellite office with highly reliable, robust connectivity. Case 3, bandwidth challenged satellite office and little to no local IT support staff. Case 4, a remote user accessing corporate applications and data using a government issued device. In case 5, a remote user accessing corporate applications and using a personal device. And that also includes, can be without a VPN as well. Question? Okay. So those are the 5 architectural use cases. Why we have those is because if there is something to deploy, we want to know how to deploy that. Sometimes some of you have cloud solutions. I understand that, but still, how do you account for a bandwidth challenged satellite office with little to no local IT support staff? I know we have, I know Sarah and Danny are supporting the Department of State, where I formerly come from, and that is a challenge for us when we have cloud solutions. Sometimes we have to deploy something locally in order to accommodate a high latency, low bandwidth sites. Because when we're talking about zero trust, we're kind of trying to do things in more real time. I can't wait a day to take an action on something after somebody authenticates, because that person's probably already done and gone by that time. So we got to be able to do things in real time. So what does your solution like in these kind of use cases architecturally? Any questions?
This is Sheila from Lemon. Just double checking. Can you select more than one use case?
I'd like to know all 5. Yes.
Okay, got it.
We would like to know all 5, how you account for all 5 in your architecture.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, and please ask questions as we go through this, because I really want to make sure that everybody's clear on some things. I've had follow-ups, and I don't mind doing follow-ups after this, but I want to make sure that everything's very clear, so the audience is getting the information that we believe they need, and it is an apples to apples kind of thing. Another question I heard coming in. Sorry. Okay. Yep. Just give me a shout when you have a question. All right. So the next thing is, want to be very clear on what specific tools or suite of tools are being used in the POC. So not just your company name. This is what we do. Some of you have a suite of tools, and you might put them under a nomenclature, and there might be 5 tools under that nomenclature, kind of like an umbrella suite of tools or something. But you may not be presenting all 5 of those tools. What tools are you specifically presenting? And then if it is also something like a modular, you're presenting, here's the tool that we have. What modules? If it's a module, like you have the base functionality, and then you can add modules to that tool, or turn on modules to that tool. Be very specific about what it is that you're showing, either to include the modules, or if it's a suite, if you have a suite of tools, what tools within that suite that you are presenting. And then we'll talk about the functionality here in a little bit. So want to be very clear, what tools in your solutions are you presenting? Be very clear on that, because sometimes it can be a little obscure, and we want the audience to know exactly, if I'm looking at this, exactly what is it that I'm looking at. So next is the prerequisites. What kind of prerequisites do we need? Compute, storage. For the solution you're showing, you can, kind of a range. If you have 10,000 users, this is kind of the bare minimum kind of thing. Just it doesn't have to be exact. I don't have exact things to do for, exact requirements to give you, but just kind of a very high level overview. If there's a hard and fast prerequisites, like our solution needs some kind of authentication in order to work, so you can access the tool and monitor and manage it, then okay, I need some kind of authentication mechanism that you need to integrate with. So
Gerry, question?
Any prerequisites that you have? Yep, go ahead, Steve.
So Steve, representing Forum Systems. So this brings up a confusion point from the last meeting in my mind on, as we do these demos, what is available and being provided in order to demonstrate all of these things. And maybe it's something you're going to talk to later, but my understanding from previous conversations is that this was a bring your own,
yes,
bring everything you need yourself.
It still is. It still is a bring everything your own. But what I'm talking about is, like, when we talk about like the architecture and the things that are being deployed, what is it that you need from the environment that you require to have in place in order for your tool to work? So I'm talking about if I was a customer and I was deploying your solution. I'm not talking about the lab yet.
Okay.
Right?
And really my question really is relevant to the lab, and so maybe I need to hold it for later.
No, this is not the lab. This is, if I'm a customer, what is it that I need to have for your tool to work in my environment? What are those prerequisites? Yeah.
Got it.
Somebody got to mute. Unless they had a question. Okay, so the next thing is the functional areas. What functional areas specifically are you demonstrating in that your capabilities have, right? So there's the categories of data. And under those categories, we have the functional capabilities of data loss prevention, data classification, metadata management, data encryption, at rest on the wire, data segmentation. I'll go on. I'm not going to read every darn one of these. So there's data. There's some functional capabilities, device and endpoint functional capabilities, network and environment functional capabilities. And under here, there is also, I will update this. Management and monitoring was also put under network and environment, application workload, user visibility and analytics, automation, orchestration, governance, and scoring. So those are the categories. They each have functional capabilities. A lot of what some people do is they take, there is a slide on the site that I will pull up really quick. I'm not there's this slide that is in the same POC and use cases materials, and some people have taken this and color coded it, which is a good way. So you have a slide already pre-built and they've kind of color coded it. And like, you know, they may change the box to green for the exact functionality that they do. So there's a
if you're
slide
showing
that you can
something,
take
I'm
use
not
of.
seeing it.
Oh, sorry. Hold on then. This slide. You see this?
Yep, got it.
Okay.
Sure, thank
Yep.
you.
So that's on the folder, the same place where the outline is. And some people use this to color code. A lot of the vendors I work with that want to present to me, I give them this and they kind of color code it for me, and it makes it so much easier to understand. So slide is pre-built for you. Just take out my logo over here, please. You put your own.
Yeah, hey, Gerry. Larry from CrowdStrike.
Hey, Larry.
Good question I had. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Sounds weird.
In any event, do we have, it's not particular to the lab or anything, but is there, and we're new participants, is there a list, or do we have a breakdown of which customers are signed up or have agreed or that are going to be participating in terms of coming in and looking at the demonstrations once we get to that point?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about that here in a little bit after we go through the outline. If you can hold on for that, Larry.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if we forget, just remind me. Next is the same exact list that I just went on. We were asking about your direct functionality, but if you, this list is the same categories, same functions, except of course we will add monitoring and management again under network and environment. So same category, but where do you integrate, right? And integration can be 2 points. You don't do it directly, but you can integrate with certain things. So I see integration in 2 ways. A prerequisite. My tool requires some kind of authentication mechanism. Therefore, I need to integrate with an authentication, or I can, another example, I can provide telemetry to a risk scoring algorithm of some sort or dashboard. So that's another way to integrate. So there's 2 kind of primary ways to integrate. So you can use the same slide. You can all do this all in one slide probably, and color code that same slide and show this is the primary functional areas and these are integration areas, and use some kind of different color or something is what some people have done. But this is the same list, but where can you integrate as well?
I had a question on that one.
Yep, go ahead.
Is this where you can integrate or where you need to integrate? Is this like a requirement? Or
It's both.
Okay.
Both, right? Because one integration may be a prerequisite, like I need to have an authentication, because if you want to access my stuff, I need to be able to authenticate. So I need to integrate with your authentication, whether that be Active Directory and Okta or whatever, or where the possibilities are, the art of the possible.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Gerry, this is Jeff Allen with Rubric. What about integration with other vendors in the lab? Are you interested in that? There's some stuff I'd love to do.
Yeah, absolutely, if you can. But those would be different functional areas, right? Because they do another function. So what functions are you talking about that you're covering that, hey, I could integrate with a, I'm just gonna pick on, a Cisco, Palo Alto, an Okta, or whatever, in regards to what you're talking about. What functional areas are you working in? Where's that synergy that you're doing that? So what functional areas are they covering that you're integrating with? That makes sense?
Yep, thanks.
So to clarify the rules of engagement on that, if we come into our demo and are teaming with another vendor, do we each have a block of time, or does that count, both vendors counts as one block of time?
If you completely team up, that would be one block of time. But
Got it.
if you're just doing a bring your own, like if you're bringing your own from that other vendor or that other vendor is helping with you, that's your block of time.
Got
Because
it.
that other vendor may have other functionalities that they want to demo that
Thanks.
you're just showing one little piece, right? So, and time probably wouldn't permit. So I would say, do it so that you're separate blocks of time.
Can I add one thing?
Yep.
So if you are working with another vendor who's on our list that's already part of this Zero Trust Lab, we can try and block them together so you can have one after the other if you guys are connected, where you need company A needs company B and then company B needs company A, so you can do your whole presentation and then follow on as the other presentation. So if you reach out to me about that kind of requirement, we can try and figure that out.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead.
hey, Gerry, Henry here representing Trend Micro. So there's also some confusion from the last meeting about the duration of the block of time. There was some time that was communicated, which prior to the last meeting it was 90 minutes, and then
We'll get to that. We'll get Henry.
I'm
we'll-
willing. I'm willing to wait if that will be answered later time.
Yeah,
thank
we're
you.
gonna get to all that. I want to get to the outline first, so you guys
All right, cool.
know, and then that helps with that conversation after, I think, once we get to this. But no, thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. So the next thing is, after the functionality, we talked about what you do, what you integrate with, then there's scope. What do you cover? Do you only cover on-prem? Do you only cover cloud? If you cover cloud, is it only SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, or all? And how do you function? Is it also within a hybrid scenario where you can cover on-prem and cloud? Next is, and this is only being asked at a very high level. We're not asking you to go down into great details because we are doing zero trust. We're not doing compliance and things, but it is good to know any mapping to 800-53 that you can show us or do or describe. I'm not asking you to come with all the controls of 853 and show us, function control. Not asking for that. We're just asking at a very high level. Do you have some kind of mapping that you can do to 800-53? Don't break your backs over this. It's just very high level if you can. It's almost kind of optional, I would say.
Quick question on
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question on that. So if we produced a marketing doc or a material that shows how we connect, our technology connects to some of those requirements, is it better just to provide that as a takeaway or cover that during the demonstration?
That's an excellent takeaway. Yeah, I would say it's an excellent takeaway, and you can just speak to it in your demo, so you don't have to spend a whole bunch of time.
And would it be provided somewhere on your site as a link they could get to, or would we need to refer them to?
Yeah,
we
can probably work on that, I'm sure, right, Michael and Kirsten? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Nope, thank you. Next is kind of what I call the Peacock requirement. Not necessarily the requirement, but this is your chance to, we want you to, we're trying to be flexible as well, right? What distinguishes you from the other? What, if A and B both did similar things, why do you think yours is better, right? This is your opportunity to really say, I'm the best because of boom, in this functionality in this area. So So we are, we want you to be flexible. But the rest of the outline is things that we want you to cover because we want to make sure that the government participants get all the same information when they have to do comparisons. So yes, show off your solution at that point, or just highlight why you're the best of the breed. Licensing, explain your licensing model. Is it by user, is it by subscription, device, transaction, hybrid? What is your licensing model at a very high level? Doesn't have to be very detailed. If you are able to and can, please provide current government customers or non-government customers that are maybe using the solution that you're talking about in this presentation. Of course, it's always helpful. And then the demo. And I'm going to skip down past this right now. So there
a
are
question for you on sharing
Yep.
government versus non-government.
Mhm.
This is basically a public meeting, correct? A lot of agreements that we have with government customers is, yeah, you can tell another government entity we're using it,
Mhm.
but they don't want it shared beyond that. So that puts us
Yep.
in a really difficult position.
Yeah, share what you're comfortable with in that case, right? Or you can say, if you would like references for government customers, please contact such and such, and we will see if we can get you in touch with one of our government customers. You can say, we do have government customers, but we can't freely share that, blah, blah, blah. Does that work?
Yeah, I think that'll be the way it has to be.
Yep. Yeah, some are fine with sharing, those that are fine with sharing, share what you can. But if you can't, just say, please contact us or something like that. So there are 12 scenarios. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I will point out one that I have frequently gotten questions on. Is scenario number 9. So scenario number 9 uses scenarios 5 through 8, but addresses from the perspective of a primary agency being accessed to gain fingerprint data by another agency system. Now, what kind of happens is people see this fingerprint data, and the real emphasis really is not necessarily that it's fingerprint data. It's just that fingerprint data is high value data, right? It is sensitive if it got out into the public for whatever reason, but it's another agency's system, right? That may not be doing zero trust, may not have the same, security, telemetry, whatever in theirs. The rest, when you read about 5, is your network, your things that you're managing, your agency. The key to number 9 really is another agency system. The fingerprint data aspect of it is just, this is a high value data, very sensitive data that we're talking about gaining access to. But the key is another agency system. I've had that question and people kind of get focused on the fingerprint thing. It's just the value of that just gives it value, but it's really this aspect that's different than the 5 through 8 aspect. So there's 12 mandatory scenarios we ask you to go through. If you do not do a scenario, please be very explicit about that. You can combine scenarios, but please be very explicit about, all right, now I'm going to demo a combination of scenario 4 and 5. Okay, great. That's fine. Just make sure you're very explicit about what scenario you're demoing when you do your demos, so the audience knows and can understand what it is you're demoing. If you don't do one, just say, we don't do this. This is not something that we can do. Be very straightforward. If you combine scenarios, be very explicit, be very clear that you are combining scenarios.
Hey, Gerry.
Now, yep, go for it.
There are some companies that can demonstrate all of the scenarios, and there simply isn't enough time in what you've allocated. So our thinking was more around a prioritization of what we thought would be of value to the federal client base. Will you have any guidance for those companies?
Yeah, I'm going to echo that as
Yeah,
well.
let's
When I
hold
read
that
through
thought.
this, I didn't read it as mandatory. You have to do all 12. It was, which of these 12 would you like to be able to demo?
Okay.
And
Yeah,
did
that's
that based upon a weight decision of what we wanted to put emphasis on.
yeah. Due to the numbers and the time, yes. Let's keep
Hey,
it. We will
hey,
keep it at that. Yeah.
Gerry, in the last meeting, there was an assertion that we could video the ones that we could do, but we didn't think were high value enough to present live.
Yes. Yeah. Very good point. Let's circle back. Yeah. So, all right. So yes, we do have many more vendors than we anticipated. We are restricted on time. So yes, highlight the ones that you will be doing, be very explicit about the ones that you will be presenting. I highly recommend that if you can record doing the other ones that you are able to do with your solution, that you provide that so we can post that just as well along with any other read ahead materials and things like that. And we can append it to part of the video that will be the live demo, as well as we can add this additional amendum backup demos along with that live demo. So if you're able to do that, I think that's an excellent thing to record all the ones that you're not going to present during the time. That clear? That works, Steve? That address what you're asking? Okay.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right.
Gerry, one thing, delineating the ones you're prioritizing with the ones you cannot do in those scenarios. So we make sure that we're transparent about, hey,
Please.
we can do all of these, we're prioritizing these, and we're doing a later, we'll make the other ones available.
Yep.
We can't do scenarios 5, 7, and 9, so that we know, so that when the government when they're looking at this, they understand apples to apples. These
Yes.
guys can do it all. These guys can only do these scenarios.
Please, please, please do. Yes. I think it's only fair for the audience, right? To be very clear, because they may be looking, hey, I really like this solution. Let me see what they do with the other scenarios. They weren't, well, I can't find it. Well, that's because you didn't do 5, 7, 9, because you can't do it. So yeah, be very transparent. That's kind of been the theme I think I've been trying to stress through going through this. So yeah.
So I know we're talking time later, but that becomes relevant to this discussion. The amount of time available to us.
Yep. Yeah, and we can talk through that a little more when we do get to the time. Yes. So yeah, so pick to highlight the ones that you will be presenting and prioritizing for your demos. And if you are able to record the other ones and provide that recording, then we can do that. If you want to do extra credit, here's some additional scenarios that we may recommend that you may want to do. If you want to pre-record or record and provide as well. Of course, provide POCs. So the customers walk away, they have POCs if they want to follow up, and you can, go to the lab with them and demo some more what I like to call the snowflake requirements of the agency that the overall high level requirements didn't cover, because we can't cover everything. So we wanted to keep it high level. This up here is scenarios for taking in multiple factors and weighing them. You can use this if you want. It's kind of like plug and play. It's a cleared government employee, an on-premise network, and a managed desktop. That is a lower risk than an uncleared contract employee coming from the coffee shop network down the street using a personal device, right? Kind of scenario. Some of these you can plug and play with the scenarios there, or come up with other scenarios if you want to do other recorded type scenarios and provide those. But when you do prioritize the scenarios, we ask you to do it with one of the 12 for the demo. That is the outline. One of the things I think we forgot to mention is what's good to mention when you are doing your demo too is what is the threat that you're mitigating against, right? Is it man in the middle? Is it, what kind of attack or something is good to mention when you're presenting your demo and your scenarios as well. With that, we had a couple questions on timeline. I'm gonna shift to Mike for a moment and kind of explain that, and then we can have a discussion around the timeline aspects that I know is a concern. So Michael.
I'm good. All right. So I'm working through the list, the spreadsheet. I'm starting to reach out to folks to get their prep time for their intake. We are starting with the virtual because the physical lab is being prepped now and should be in the next 2 weeks in place. And those folks who are physical or who are both physical and virtual, I'll start to set up those intake meetings. The time is from 11:30 to, 11 to 1:30. There will be time for questions after that 1:30 timeframe. There'll be 2 vendors, 75 minutes per vendor, and then we'll have question and answers. I'm working through intake meetings. I've blocked out time to work with either the virtual or the physical group based on what you've asked for to get all of the requirements that you need for the environment. Again, it's bring your own for the physical. There are some limited aspects to the virtual. If you need software, if you need a helper application or anything like that, it's bring your own for that. Synthetic data to show what you can do, you have to provide your own. We're giving you an environment. We're giving you on the virtual side, on the physical side, we're giving you power, a network connection and a rack. And you'll have to provide the rest to make sure that it's functional. We're trying to give you enough time, especially on the physical side, to install, test, make sure that everything's running properly before your actual presentation time. I think those are all of the pieces that we've asked for, or people have been asking me questions about. I think I've been responding to emails as people have been asking. I've been trying to group them and answer them in the evening so that I can kind of bust them all out at one time, as opposed to going out throughout the day. I have a day job too, trying to balance all of these pieces. So
Michael, yeah, this is David Robertson with Checkpoint. Is there an archive of those responses that you've responded with to the group?
Most of them have been specific questions to each vendor, and unless it's a group answer, and I put them in my, I'm trying to do a almost weekly note to everybody. If there's something that people have asked, I've tried to put that information in that email.
Okay. One last question on that. If there's an FAQ, but outside of that, as far as the physical, and I know we're going to get prepared for that, how much time will be allotted to come in there and set that set that equipment up?
I'm trying to give the folks that are physical about 3 weeks prior to their presentation. So kind of a week to receive equipment, a week to install, and then a week to get your presentation down if you need to, and that sort of thing. And it gives you about 3 weeks. If we need more time than that for the physical, if somebody has a need that's longer than 3 weeks, I can accommodate that. I just need to know ahead of time.
Hey, Michael, this is Henry from Trend Micro. Maybe this question is for you and maybe for Gerry. During this lab preparation, would there be some time that we could send you guys our interpretations about this 12 given scenarios? And we just want to make sure that it is aligned to the expected result or to the expectations of the agency. Is that something that we could do during this lab preparation? Just
sure.
All right, Gerry. We'll send over.
Yeah, I mean, I've fielded a lot of questions for clarification, or or somebody set up a meeting if as my time permits, because like Michael said, I do have a day job too that's pretty packed. But to get it right, to make sure if there's a bunch of people that want to go over a little more detail, I'm willing to do that. Trafenia is also available as well to help with that. So just reach out and we can do that, or just that you had an email question, that's fine too.
Hey, Michael, Steve here.
Real quick, Steve, before you
go ahead.
So if you have questions or you want to do something like that, if you send me that information, I will try and coordinate with Gerry, try and kind of group them together and see if
yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah.
So
some of the questions have been similar.
Yeah. So we'll try and group those and then respond. So if you want to send me those types of things, and then I'll try and act as the kind of the operator, the orchestrator.
Yeah, and I will add that any vendors that are planning to demo and present, that haven't shown up, we'll probably have to have another session with them because we want everybody to make sure they have the same information and are on a level playing field. Therefore, we'll definitely set something up and we can let others know maybe to attend that if we have to.
Steve, you have a
So
question?
starting on Fridays at whatever date we end up starting these, 2 consecutive 75-minute presentations. So in my 75-minute block, I can use the full 75 for presentation, or I can stop at 60 and do 15 Q&A, completely up to me.
Yes.
But at the end of that 75 minutes, we're going to do a break in the recording so that the video link that we get is just that 75 minutes. Is that a valid assumption? That was discussed a couple of weeks ago, is that we would enforce it.
That's my understanding, is that each vendor will have that block of time, and then at the end, you do whatever you want in your 75 minutes, and then next vendor goes for their 75 minutes. And then at the end, there'll be a Q&A so that you can stay on as you need to answer questions from both vendors.
But
Yeah,
I
you guys
think
are
the
there
key
with
to
it.
I think the key to the question though is, will it be one full 75 minutes put together? So if I want to see the other vendor, do I have to fast forward through that whole 75 minutes to see the second vendor, or will we be giving each vendor their recorded file kind of thing? That makes sense?
That's the question, because what Tom mentioned 2 weeks ago was break the video, stop the recording, pull and enforce an end time to the first vendor so the second person isn't left compressed. Enforce an end time and have a new video for the second vendor so that we have those for marketing purposes.
Yes, sir. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And the question and answer, I think, and Michael, you can agree with me on this. It's kind of, I guess I'm kind of questioning is we're a little flexible on that time, right? 75 minutes, very, very strict on that.
Yes.
But the question and answer after, which is combined with both vendors available, is a little flexible of how long we can do.
Yes.
We're not going to do it for the rest of the day, but
Yes.
we're
We
flexible.
want to make sure that the majority of the questions are answered. So we'll keep that up, but we don't want it to drag on for another 4 hours.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make this harder than it has to be, but if we happen to be the first vendor, we may have Q&A that happens an hour or so later. I'm just trying to think about, is that Q&A intended to be recorded as a separate thing? Is it tacked on to the end of the second vendor's time video?
My understanding is that our intention is your 75-minute presentation time is recorded, and then the next 75-minute presentation time, and the Q&A is just free form that will not be recorded. So I got another piece. I'm sending out. I've sent out questions to folks with regard to virtual or as I get to the physical. I cannot go forward and set up your intake interviews unless I have those questions answered. So that will push back your presentation time. So as I go through this, I'm sending out blocks of time. If they work, that's great. Pick it out, and I'm scratching it off, and I'm trying to block these to be as efficient as possible for everybody involved, us, the vendors, and then the participants. If you don't respond to those, then I have to push you back, and then we look at moving your date back. I'm trying to keep these blocks so you have enough time to be able to get yourself prepared. I know on the virtual side it might be less, but might not be. But we want to get them all set up and running so that you guys have the best opportunity to present the best you possibly can. And honestly, I don't want to be jacked up every week where I'm trying to scurry around and get everybody online. So I want to get everything in a process so that you guys move forward and nobody's stressed about this, at least the least stress possible.
Michael, on the physical, will the lab be able to install our equipment if we have clear installations, or do you want the vendor to do that?
Vendor's going to do that. ATARC doesn't have the personnel to be able to install 60 people's inventory of stuff, or the percentages. We just the vendor is going to have to install it.
Did I hear earlier that the demos and such are going to be open to pretty much anyone who wants to join?
That's a Gerry or a Kirsten question.
Or can it be, or
That
can it
is-
be?
That is correct. They'll have to get access to the meeting link though, so they're not closed to the public necessarily, but they would have to go through me in order to be added to the meeting.
Well, I'm thinking more about like competitors seeing demos.
Right.
I'm a little bit concerned about that. And I mean, if it was government only, I'd be happy with that, but frankly, I don't want my competitors seeing my demos and I don't think I should see theirs.
Well, that is a decision. We decided that we would keep them open this time around. So if there is anything that you don't want them to see, I would leave that out of the demonstration.
Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of having differentiators that we want to talk about with the government customers.
Right. Certain things you just can't hide because it's part of the solution. So I agree with the concern. This is Reggie from Ivanti.
Sure, this is Dean Kiefer, and I agree with the previous two guys. So
Probably
it's,
have to take that and go back and talk with Tom, Kirsten.
I mean,
It's,
yeah.
I
mean, don't we- I mean, we have
This was-
Chatham House
so
rules,
this
Kirsten.
this was a decision that was made early on by the vendors who are participating from the beginning. So I personally, I am fine with that if that's what the majority wants, but it was decided upon early on in the sessions.
You gonna say something, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I thought we had Chatham House rules here. I mean, this is a joint group. We all work together to develop what's best for government. I don't understand why we have any issues sharing what we do for, I'm for having vendors come. And I mean, this is a team sport. We work with a lot of vendors that are there. I mean, I think it's very important for all of us to know what each other does. It helps us build better solutions for the government. So I'm very supportive of people being there.
That's kind of been the intent of the group from the beginning.
A point that resonated with me too is that not every single vendor can provide every single solution. So it really would be an effort in this sense.
Let me
This
add
is-
something to this conversation. You know, instead of seeing how you compete by showing everyone else, you know, what you have and distinguishes you, it might help actually another vendor see, you know, how they can fill in gaps that they currently have, and they are unaware of your somebody else's capabilities. And from my perspective, you know, at IBM, I do that a lot. You know, when I find out that someone else has something that can integrate with what we provide, it's great. So, you know, maybe looking at what you can offer differently and in collaboration with industry and also in keeping in mind on how it all will help the government in the end would be great.
And building on Gabe's comment, the government has invested significant resources in many of the vendors' products on this call. You need to be able to differentiate and understand how all that works and fits together as the government goes down the zero trust journey. Since no one company on this call does it all, we all work together to deliver the outcomes. So I understand the sensitivities, but that's part of the marketing approach that you need to take. But you need to be able to articulate to the government clients, who are the primary audience here, the kinds of capabilities you can deliver to help them achieve their outcomes, which is a multi-vendor scenario that is interoperable.
Danny Toller here.
I think perhaps that, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, quickly from a practical standpoint, unless you have all of the participants sign an NDA, the exclusion of other vendors may be meaningless anyway.
Yeah, and I think to follow on all that, guys, I think that perhaps to kind of assuage some of the concerns from multiple vendors, I work with multiple vendors, and my positioning to my government customers typically involves comparing and contrasting one vendor to the next. With that being said, perhaps if we left any kind of discussions around product differentiators or I'm better than you because XYZ into the Q&A session, which will not be recorded, that would give a government customer the ability to ask questions around, well, we're looking at company A and your company B, why are you better than them, rather than inserting that necessarily into the presentation. Historically, I do not go and bash one vendor to the next, whether I'm working for that vendor or for another vendor, because you never know with whom you're speaking and what their alliances may be from either this lifetime or a previous.
The functionality differentiators are what we're talking about here. I don't think anyone that bashes another vendor deserves government support going forward in that area. We are here to deliver an outcome for our government clients, and they need to understand what we do relative to the scenarios that have been put forth. And I think that's been kind of the starting point. Tom was on board with that from the very beginning. I think it makes sense. We need to be clear with our clients, what we can do, what we can't do, how we work with others. And I think Gerry's done a great job of trying to set up a series of scenarios and approaches that enable us to tell that story. And honestly, guys, if anybody starts bashing another vendor in front of a government client, I think it hurts you in the long run. And I'm happy to have a philosophical conversation with anybody on this call.
Bravo, Steve. You know, as always, I agree with you.
Thanks. So, all right. So I'm gonna cut this one short, and I'm just gonna say, as the chair, that yeah, we and with Steve and Stephen Kovac said, you know, we started out with Chatham House rules. We started out this group as a cooperation group, everybody on equal playing field. We've tried to maintain that. It's been a great experience, in my opinion, at least for me. Going through this, there's been great participation to this point, and I think it's always been that understanding that this would be a cooperative group. I do understand, you know, trade secrets, things like that, but you know, some of the things some folks have said here, you know, when we're asking you, you know, we're not asking you to bash the other guy. We're asking you, it's like, you know, if I'm a government person sitting in the audience, why am I paying attention? What do you do that's great, that is going to be, you know, get my attention kind of thing? We're not asking you to, you know, maybe I articulate it wrong. Why am I better than the other guy? No, I'm not really asking that. It's like, why are you the one I want to look at? What, you know, it's about you, not the others. Yeah, so we're gonna stick with the way we were going. If you are uncomfortable with that, I understand. You know, Michael's been a good focal point. If you want to have some of this discussion, let him know and reach out to us, and we can have a further discussion on a much smaller platform. But I think, you know, for those that have been in this group from the beginning and through the long run and put in a lot of their own blood, sweat, and tears, you know, to get to this point, which has been pretty astronomical in the time frame that we've done it, in my opinion, as well. This has been kind of the thought process that we've been going through with. So we're going to keep it the same as Kirsten has articulated. And so we'll put a close to that part of the conversation.
Gerry, can I make one clarification real quick?
Yes, sir.
Going backwards, it was noted to me that I might not have been as articulate as I should have been. The physical side will have a cage, power, and network connection. There's the ability to get to the internet or to other cloud service providers through the Equinix mesh. So I just wanted to make sure that it didn't seem like there was no outside access that was brought to my attention. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great.
This is Tony Steffi at Illumio. What is the requirement to use the lab? Specifically, we're a vendor that does a lot of SaaS and not necessarily require a physical location.
So what we have been doing is, if you have a SaaS that cannot be put into another environment, we're trying to get apples to apples. So we want people to either install their instance in a virtual environment or in a physical environment, or some combination. But if you're your solution is not capable of being put into another instance, it's a SaaS, it's AWS native, you don't have a way to do on-prem in any way or in another virtual environment, we are making available, we're allowing you to produce your solution and present based on what you need to do, and I can work with you separately on what that entails.
No, thank you.
So
We just want to make, I would say, just make sure that if that's allowed, that you have the scenarios and things for any follow-up that a government customer may want to do with you available so that they can follow up based on what you, the environment that you used for this, right? Because they may want to go through one of the scenarios that we did, you know, and go through it in more detail or something. So make sure that that environment's available after for any, you know, one-on-one government follow-up, please.
And Gerry, we did this, remember, during the TIC 3.0
Yeah.
Working group, you know, like companies like Zscaler, we're 100%, you know, born and bred in the cloud. There is no such thing as an appliance to us. So what we did was we used our demo. We provided our demo platform to anybody to demo. And then anybody wanted to follow on, you know, we just had a secondary meeting going through our global cloud, our FedRAMP cloud. So I think that's a great point, Tony. We're the same way. We're not going to put anything in the facility. I don't think I don't think it's a requirement. I think it's just an offer up. If you need to, you can. So,
but we need to, we do want to be fully aware of that though, going in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you providing a list of the environment, how that's set up, what's available, Windows, Linux, O365, Active Directory, anything like that that might be required? Is there a list of all those features that are installed?
I've sent, so when you did an intake, there was a list of questions of what you needed. But I will also, when we're doing our setting up our intake schedule, I will send you that list of questions again that asks, what is it you need as an environment in the virtual environment? And then we have the intake meeting discussing what it is that you put down in the answers to the question. So we can navigate what it is you need.
Thank you.
And Michael Stevenson here, again, I think I know the answer, but just to clarify, a couple of weeks ago, Tom talked about having some common set of services, back-end data, et cetera, that would be provided to everybody. But if I understand Gerry correctly, that is not going to happen.
There's no data going to be provided to anybody. So you will have to bring your own synthetic data to do examples and to present. The back-end services are limited with regard to, for instance, like I said, with the physical side, cage, power, network connectivity, which allows you to connect to the fabric for Equinix to get to other cloud service providers, get to the internet, those kinds of things. On the virtual side, you know, the IS, the infrastructure that you need, or the platform that you need in order for your product solution to ride on, there will be that service, but not if you need some, you know, if you need an instance of, you know, some application in order to show, you're gonna have to bring that yourself.
Understood. Gerry, I've got questions about read aheads and leave behinds. Is this the right time?
Sure.
So we've been encouraged to kind of put white papers and other product documentation into our huddle site.
That you're comfortable with sharing.
Oh, absolutely comfortable with sharing. What wasn't clear to me is whether that is then made available to the government people that are going to be looking at the lab. The questions that's one question. The other questions are, you know, it's easy to imagine that a slide deck really ends up needing to be a leave behind. You just can't touch on all of it during the presentation. So that seems like a logical place to put that leave behind, wanting to confirm that. Is that fair? Okay. And then is there an intent that there is any kind of read ahead? Because I don't think we'd want to push all of that to a government customer in advance, but yeah, are you looking for, you know, we've done those questionnaires already. Is that essentially the common read ahead that every vendor does the same thing that the government gets?
Yes.
Got it. So we don't need to put together a read ahead summary of who we are and what we're doing. That was done as part of that questionnaire.
Unless you want to, because, you know, usually, and you know, a vendor will come in, and if it's the first time I'm meeting them, they tell me about the company, you know, who their CEO is, how many customers they have, what are their big, you know, there's like 10 slides on, you know, just introduction to their company kind of thing. You might want to put that as a read ahead. You're not going to want to spend a lot of time on that because you have 75 minutes. You want to get to the meat and potatoes of what we had in the outline. You know, you may want to have one slide. This is who I am. So you can we can remember who you are and everything, especially on your last side when you had POCs. But yeah, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because you don't have a whole lot of time. So that's
Got
something
it.
that you might want to put as a leave behind kind of thing.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah.
Hey, just to chime in, I'm sorry, this is Jason Ham with CrowdStrike. I just want to touch on a point that Larry Kowalski made earlier about the confirmed list of customers that will have access to this data. And then also for my colleague Jez asked in the chat, is what we produce or submit going to be made publicly available?
Yes and yes.
It will all go in huddle, and that huddle is of course locked down to only those that are participating in the working group. But if it's for the to accompany the actual demo, I think Kirsten just confirmed that yes, it can be made to the public.
Understood. And then the confirmed customer list that's taking part in this?
That is actually attending your demo?
No, as far as government customers that are going to be partaking in all of the ATARC data.
So we do have a list of the government participants for the working group. But this may go out to a wider government customer, not just those that are participating in the working group. So one of my questions was going to be Kirsten or Michael, I don't know which, because I'm not sure. But will we be publishing, will ATARC be publishing a public vendor demo schedule so people that aren't in our working group, or we can share with, like, I want to share with like the rates of HHS that may have an interest in this or something, that I can send them a link, and as Michael is updating the vendors, that there's an ongoing schedule that we can keep going back to, clicking on a link on a website and saying, yep.
So I'm capable of doing that because I'm keeping that for myself and where we are in the list. There's obviously going to be some jockeying based on how people are capable of doing whatever they're doing. So I can make that list available to you and to Kirsten, and so you have it. I don't know if it's going to be public because you end up getting into, well, who's on there, where's going, and I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just my network of like other HHS government components I'd like to share with that aren't.
You can make that available to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is Rob Miller from Forge Rock. I have two questions. No way to raise a hand, so these questions are a little old. But the guidance is changing off and on about whether we can present from our own facilities or whether we have to have stuff present in the ATARC / other facilities. If we want to present from our own, are we okay doing that? Or do we need to have something? I mean, Tom Sutter wanted to have a lab that persisted past this lab.
Correct. So the idea is we want to give the government visibility into what it would be if they were trying to get your solution. We want everybody to use the environments unless they are unable to use those environments. That's the caveat. So up to this point, we haven't offered that except for those folks who are purely native, that they don't have a way, they're not capable of doing a presentation without being in the cloud.
I must have completely misunderstood, because I think that's a fundamental change. Because Jerry, when we had our one-on-one, there was, the ability to take an external AWS commercial environment that already had everything set up and then connect in was on the table. Are we now saying that's not on the table?
I'm saying exactly, if it is a cloud native and you don't have a way to do an instance inside another on-prem or in the other virtual environment, if you cannot do that, then we will make that connection. If you're able to do that, we want it to be done that way. So that has not changed since we started. If you're not able to do it, we're willing to make the connection, but we want you to try and show your solution within either the virtual environment or the physical environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, I hear what you're saying, but this is a change.
But we have 3 environments, right? We can do them all. So we can do hybrid environments, we can do on-prem, we can do in the cloud, we can do in private cloud, public cloud, et cetera, and hybrids of those. So that's where we're trying to figure it out. What do you want from us? Exactly.
So just to follow up, my understanding was that there was that we were being given an infrastructure that we could use, and that we'd like you to use it, but there's a subtle shift here where it's now you should use that unless you can demonstrate a reason that you can't.
I'll answer that. From my guidance since the very beginning was to offer a virtual environment or a physical environment. And those were the two choices that were on the intake documents. And the reason for that was if they can't do that, then we have a discussion and figure out.
No, the intake document also included both.
Correct.
Right? So there was a one, the other, or both. But before that, there was guidance that we could use our own facilities if we chose to.
I completely agree
guidance.
with that, because when I asked the question about which block do I check on the form if we're going to use our own form, if we use our own environment, and the answer I got was that'll be all resolved at the intake. Yep. Don't worry, but we're changing things here, I think.
Right, no, I agree with that.
Hold on, that's still the same answer. If you're not able to do that at the intake meeting, if you have no way of doing it other than doing it through an AWS or a cloud only solution, that's when that would have happened in the intake meeting. Hey, we are not capable of doing A, B, or the combination of A and B. So
Michael, my main problem here is that the amount of time that's going to need to be spent by our company to implement in all the environments that we wanted to present will significantly exceed a single week.
So hold on. But I mean, do you really have to do all the environments? It's a proof of concept.
Well, it depends on who's. I mean, we're generically presenting to the government, right? So we can handle DIL environments, we can handle on-prem environments, we can handle IL6 environments, we can handle all the environments.
Hey,
so
Rob.
we're trying real quick. I'll be done in a sec, Michael. Okay. We're trying to present a generic solution to the FedGov, right? So right now we're trying to figure out what generic presentation is going to fit the broadest spectrum, right? And the amount of time necessary to implement all that is where we're struggling at the moment, right? So our original plan was to build on our own prem, so we could build it all out, take the time that we needed, also leverage things we already have built, and then present to the Fed or do these presentations as quickly as we could during this 75-minute window.
What are you going to say, Michael?
I think there was also one piece of this is there's a misunderstanding. We weren't asking about all of the ways that you can present. We were asking, do you need to use a virtual? Do you need to use a physical? Or does your solution need a combination of both the physical and the virtual? It wasn't, are you able to do each one of these pieces? We're not expecting, or my understanding is our expectation was not that you were going to have 3 instances of these up and running. The interest was that we are trying to keep it as level a playing field as possible, that folks are installing an instance in some way and then providing their solution. And you're doing a Zoom call to show your solution. So I want to make sure
I'll table it. No problem. I'll table it. Those are some of the distinguishers, though, of the product set. So we'll just put it in the slide decks and other things. But roger that. We'll table it.
Yeah. Hey, this is Loai from Illumio. I think one of the questions that we had was not so much the core or our solutions is more the source and the target requirements. I think that at least, perhaps for some of us, all of us, is building that entire, if we want to show 1,000 workloads or anything like that, I think this is the part that will take more time. And I think that is a question, and where it's easier if we were to bring an existing environment, either make that connect to the hybrid Equinix environment or make it pure SaaS. I think these are some of the things that we're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that as well. The other thing that, and I hate to be that person, but if we were to install anything on-prem within the ATARC environment, especially if there's any intent of having a persistent environment to live on, I would not be able to do that without a conversation with my legal team. And I imagine I'm not going to be the only vendor to have that, just because of the nature of the ask. For that reason, just to keep it simple on everyone, and for things that others have said, the fact that, we have to have applications to be able to show things against, yada, yada, yada. It's a lot easier to do that within our demo environments that have already been fleshed out, already been built, rather than trying to replicate all of that within an ATARC environment. It was just as simple as, okay, we'll supply all of that, be able to supply that over the Zoom call. And then it also gives us an environment easy for us to demo to government in a follow-up versus, yeah, we can demo that to you, but we need to make sure that we have access to the ATARC environment first. So I just wanted to bring attention to those points. I understand the intent of it, and I commend that. I think there's some deeper level issues here too, just from the lieu of the nature of the beast with legal agreements and things like that aren't being addressed.
So Brian, you are that kind of guy, and just a couple of quick comments. And you look back at the TIC 3.0 use cases that were built on. ATARC provided a demo environment so that federal agency or individuals could see what would happen in that environment to facilitate that delivery by industry. I don't think that anyone expected that to be sustained for year over year. I don't think that that's within the ATARC budget to continue to acquire Equinix capabilities in that area. It was designed to enable many companies that may not be able to do it on their own to deliver and show and showcase to the federal government agencies. And I think that that is the fundamental underpinning of how this started going forward. And I haven't heard anything coming out of Tom directly about trying to sustain an ongoing environment from that point of view. And I think that would warrant further discussion.
It's not a perpetual environment. It's not going to be a perpetual environment.
Okay.
It's going to be left up in it for just enough time so that there can be some customer follow-up.
Okay.
In the
and
immediate.
that's a good distinction, and one that I don't think was crystal clear. I also know for the TIC 3.0, Steve, that was built entirely separate, and there was a very different ask than what's being asked here.
So it's a good distinction, but again, I come back to the way, and again, Michael, I hear what you're saying, but from my perspective, I didn't engage with you in the conversation until many weeks into this process. And what we understood was that, hey, we have an on-prem environment, we have a cloud environment that are being provided to you by ATARC if you need them. And if you don't need them and you can connect from your own environment, then we'll just work out the connectivity and have a nice demo. But what I think you're saying is that you now must use one of those two environments that are being provided by ATARC. Am I misunderstanding? If we have all of these things set up in an AWS environment that has all of the other things necessary to do the demo, the synthetic data, the backend services, et cetera, and we just want to connect to demo that through the zoom.gov, is that allowed?
The guidance that I've been given is that we want to have everything as similar as possible. And if you're capable of doing it in the environments, we would prefer you to do that. If you are not, then we will make arrangements so that you're capable of doing your presentation. That's if you can't do it, Steve, then we'll make a connection. You'll do it how you need to do it. We want you to provide your solution. We're trying to keep everything apples to apples as best that we can. And we understand there are snowflakes everywhere, right? Everybody's got their own thing that's a reason why they need to have something different. I get that. But the guidance.
Thanks, Mike. I'll take it offline with you. I'm not trying to be a snowflake. I'm not trying to be different. What I'm saying is that this is different from what has been articulated for many, many weeks.
I understand that, and I will respect that, because I haven't been on every one of those meetings. I'm telling you the way that the program was put together and a way it was told to me. And we would prefer you to use the environment so the government can see how it works in a similar environment. And if your solution doesn't allow for that, then we will make other arrangements. And I'm happy to take it offline and we can discuss it as long as you want. I mean, I'm just telling, I don't have more to say.
And
than
Michael added a very key word, prefer.
that. Sure.
Yes, prefer. But all right. Yeah, and some of this, is probably better handled on the one-on-one engagement as you engage on your demo build out discussions and in scheduling your presentations and things like that. We just need to be very clear and understand, who's doing what and how it is. So it's very clear and we know as the working group and aware. Because like Michael said, what we are attempting to do is make sure that as much as possible there's a level playing field and everybody's having a fair shot. So that's what we're trying to get at the end of the day. But he did use the keyword prefer. So but we can have the discussion offline as well. But so we're going to close the meeting today. I do appreciate everybody's participation, hanging in there, going through this. It was very important, to get through everybody to be on the same page and understanding, kind of what the elements are of what we're expecting in these presentations. With so many vendors, we've had to make a few tweaks and to the demo. So the whole 12 aren't mandatory. Please prioritize the ones you'll be doing. Highly suggested that if you do any of the other 12 that you won't be directly presenting your demo, provide a recording. Would be great if you have additional scenarios outside of the 12 and you want to do the recordings on those too, that's welcome. And those can be provided along with the recording of the actual demo as well. We'll be getting the link. Kirsten and I will be getting a link to the schedules as Michael keeps updating them. We'll provide those to some of the government folks so that they can provide it to their government partners as well, is the main intent for that. Like I want to provide it to some of my other government partners that I network with in an HHS, for example. So we'll provide that for the government personnel. Any other burning questions at this time? We've talked about a lot. Like I said, I thank you to everybody. This is extraordinary, to have this much participation. I think this is going to be unbelievable. Like I said, when we started, I never imagined the group to grow this big and have this big of participation. I think this is, astronomical. I think this is gonna, shake the earth because this is just awesome. So I really do appreciate it. Any questions? Michael,
Gerry,
I think serving as a
Gerry,
point
I
of
got
contact.
one.
So thank you. What's that?
I think
you guys have done an outstanding job, and we're very happy to participate.
Thank you.
Seriously, it's a great job.
Gerry, Trafenia, you've been awesome, and we appreciate your leadership.
Thank you.
Gerry,
Really,
I got one.
thank
I
you.
thought I heard that everybody was going to provide their own input data for the various scenarios.
Yep.
I thought, isn't that a mistake? How can you be on a level playing field if you don't have a consistent set of input data that you're being compared against?
Oh, yeah, that's a good philosophical discussion we could definitely have. I said as level playing field as much as possible, but at the same time, we want your solution to work. So if you bring your own data, you're guaranteed to have your solution work, right? But yeah, I mean, I could go over the pros and cons back and forth on that, David. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to
Yeah,
talk
hey,
a
David,
little
I put
more
something about that in the, I'm sorry, I put something about that in the chat. This is really disparate demo environments that are available to federal customers, rather than, like, for instance, in our lab, we have Cisco, we have Juniper, we have a lot of the competing equipment. That's kind of typical things that you would see in a real government environment to be able to show. However, that's really not the intent here. That's why they're not providing the AD and those kinds of things. So
yeah.
I think it's really a chance for all the vendors to shine. And if you want to show off, hey, we work with Cisco, hey, we work with Zscaler, you can show all that stuff and realizing, of course, these are the standards. Well, I'll call them standards in quotes, but these are the typical environments that you're going to encounter when you're having a discussion with a federal customer. And, you know, that's why I think it's a good idea that you provide your own data set for that, because you can really show off what you can do, because integration is key. No two environments are the same. So if you can't integrate, you can't show integrations, you're kind of dead in the water to begin with.
Yeah. Thanks. But, oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to end with, if you have any more questions or you need any other, I'm happy to have discussions with anybody about anything that I've said. So just shoot me a note and we'll set something up.
Thanks, Michael.
And I'll just add in, may not have had more than just like an email correspondence with some of the newer folks from this working group. So if you have any administrative questions like access to Huddle, the meeting schedule, or if you just want to learn a little bit more about ATARC as an organization, please reach out to me about those types of concerns, because I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one to address them.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Let me just ask real quick. This is Mari Spina from MITRE Cyber. So I really like the use case setup and sort of the directions that everyone's going in terms of being able to demo their products. Have we thought of any kind of evaluation criteria, say against use cases for government in general?
No, that's not, we're not doing that. Our job is to give a platform to the vendors.
Yeah.
And to showcase, it's up to the government. And that's why we kind of put the outline together, is to kind of give that, you know, that structure of the same type of information presented from each vendor. And so the government participant can make their, you know, kind of evaluation of who they may want to follow up with or what they have interest in.
Yeah, roger that. Yep.
Trafenia is on. I think she was trying to chime in. Sorry.
Hey, yeah. Also the evaluation, we went through what Zero Trust is before involving all of the vendors. So the government has a really good understanding, I would say, of what Zero Trust and kind of what they're looking for when it comes to the Zero Trust capabilities.
Which was all provided to the vendors as well. Every time there was output from that, it was given to the vendors.
Yep, that's
So
all
that's
on
all
the
in the huddle.
site.
Yep,
Yeah.
thanks. No, good point. Thanks, Trafenia.
Thank you so much.
All right, so yeah, so with that, thank you, Michael, Trafenia, Kirsten, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing this move forward, and I hope you all have a great, wonderful, long weekend.
Thanks, Gerry.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
See you, everyone.